welcome to the Red Barn series again. We're back with a brand new guest. Today's guest is the amazing Sam Steffen, the man of lyrics. Um, I have nothing but unending gratitude and amazement at this guy. And it's hard to explain what he's doing. So I think what I'm going to do is just bring Sam on to sing his first song, um, and let you decide what he's doing. First song is called "I Ain't Even Had My Coffee Yet." So if you can start that up, we'll be golden. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, the rooster's in the hen house with his feathers all mussed. The hay barn is burning and the milk's gone sour. It's harvesting time, but the whole crop's a bust. And that's the third thunder strike I've heard in the half-past hour. I've been up for 3 days in a dripping cold sweat. I called for the doc and they sent me a vet. I'm losing my livelihood along with a bet. Hell, and I ain't even had my coffee yet. Well, the old ship's hit an iceberg and the radio's down. The captain's in the crow's nest trying to get drunk. Nero's fiddling, yelling, we're all gonna drown. Somebody send an SOS, we're sunk. Throw out your preservers, cast wide your nets. We're gonna need all the mother-loving help we can get. I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm all wet. Hell, and I ain't even had my coffee yet. Detectives wearing his very best disguise. He's already taken several incriminating photographs. He's got all the evidence he needs to prove whatever the defendant denies. He caught that fella and his secretary taking a bath. A lady pulls up in her ex-husband's new Corvette right as the private eye's lighting his last cigarette. She says, "Are you ready?" He says, "We're all set." And I ain't even had my coffee yet. Well, productivity's down, the factory's pinched, management doesn't know what the hell to do. Them union fellas, they won't surrender an inch, and the strike ain't nowhere near to being through. The thing to remember is that no one's gonna forget. If it's a do or die matter, I say let's. Every time I answer the phone, it's a brand new threat. And I ain't even had my coffee yet. Hadn't hit my porch before I heard the news. The neighbors were out in their bathrobes quarreling. The election was over and half the nation singing the blues. Wipe the confetti off of your TV set. You better call up all of your friends and forgive them their debts. The whole world's gone crazy. I'm full of regrets. And I ain't even had my coffee yet.
So marvelous. I pick up my phone and it's a brand new threat. Holy oh God. Oh man.
Story of my
Sam.
life.
Sam, welcome, welcome, Sam.
Hey there,
So good to
Bill.
see you again.
Good to see
Now,
you too, man.
oh, I gotta let you know some of the history. But first, that song, that song, I gotta, oh, damn. Listen, you just struck me. You the way you develop lines, like it's like every line you write is like a potential meme of some kind. It's you know, I that whole picture of the threat of picking up the phone. You know, I was just thinking about all these phone calls we get, Sam, that uh, like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night, and it's all people that sit there and tell you this is your last chance to take advantage, or we've got this money set aside. All you got to do is tell us your social security number. And I'm like thinking, why do they let these phone calls go through, Sam? I mean, they're obviously looking for people who are like marginally living in society, who are susceptible to that, the people that are too, they're just not intelligent enough to deal with threats like this, and we're letting these people get preyed on by these phone call companies that are going to take all their money. And you know, what kind of a society are we that we're letting these people getting robbed? We're letting uh, uh, susceptible people be robbed. What the hell? But we have a gun to make sure that everybody who's not susceptible can fight back. So that's the story of life, Sam. Okay, I've said my piece. I want people to know what the hell's going on in your life. What you're out in Idaho right now, where no one wants to wear the banner for the sash of Miss Idaho. That's my favorite joke about Idaho.
Yeah,
How's it
yeah.
been out there for you?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we moved out here back in October. My wife and I, and with COVID going on, we haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to get out and about. So I haven't been playing very much music out in the out in the real world. Um, but I'm hoping that as people get vaccinated and things start to reopen, that'll become something I will be doing. And I am glad to say that I have gotten vaccinated. So I'm looking forward to that happening sooner rather than later.
I hope so too.
Um, but it's good. Idaho is beautiful. It's a long way from Bethlehem and Philadelphia,
Mm.
where I was living.
Yep.
Um, uh, but yeah, we're really close to the mountains, so every day we get to go hiking if we so choose. Um, and yeah, there's just not as many people out here. It's a
I
little bit
understand.
different.
I understand the sky looks a little bit different. A lot more stars in Idaho than there are in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I guess because there's less light pollution,
Yeah, yes, that's right.
and fewer
So,
people. Yeah, I think most places in Idaho, it's like there's like 2 or 3 people per square mile.
yeah,
So
perfect. That's
it's a little
perfect.
bit different. And I think
Yeah.
the other stat I heard is that there's as many people who live in the state of Idaho as who live in the city of Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
So, which is where I used to live, and uh, it's it's just like having more room.
But you know what though? You got to be careful when what you do in Idaho, because they say every potato has 1,000 eyes.
Yeah, they do
Oh,
say that.
okay. Well, God bless them. You know
Yeah.
what, Sam? I think I hear another song coming on. What song would you like us to do next?
Well, yeah, if you want to play another one. So well, let me just say something about that first song is that so ain't
Okay.
even had my coffee yet. It's like my favorite kind of songs to write are songs that are just kind of that are sort of like talked more than sang. I've always been kind of self-conscious about my singing voice, and sort of growing up never really
enjoyed singing, I don't know, events or like being forced to sing. But one thing I like about folk music is that you can kind of get away with just talking sometimes, is, you know, if you can play over what you're talking.
Yes,
uh,
that's beauty.
Anybody can do it.
Yes, that's why they
So
call it folk music.
that's right.
You
That's
don't
right.
need special talents. You can't.
That's right.
You don't have to hit a C in the third, fourth register. You know.
That's right. And
Yeah.
yeah,
You
so
just tell them the truth. That's all you
it's
got to
for
do.
yeah, it's for the people who maybe aren't as confident in their talents. Folk music is for you.
That's right.
Um,
That's
yeah.
perfect.
So anyway, that's kind of a talking song. I do have songs where I'm like singing a little bit more, but that's more of a talking song. And this next one, this other one I was gonna play is it's called "Ain't No Friend of Mine," and I can kind of tell a little bit of the story of it here, if that'd
Go
be
ahead,
appropriate.
please.
But yeah, so I used to live down in Nashville back in, I think, like 2011 to 2013 is when I was there. And I used to, friend of mine and I used to go over to a bar that was right on Music Row, which is like where all the big music producer places are, like what is it, like ASCAP and
Yep. We don't talk about those
the
guys.
yeah, okay, yeah, censored.
Yeah.
But they you know, they're all on Music Row, and there's a bar there called Bobby's Idle Hour, and it was a really divey kind of place, really great. I think it's since closed down, but it like then it reopened in a different location or something. But anyway, it was kind of like a divey scene, and the bartender was like an amazing guitarist who kind of never really went the way of trying to get a record made or get produced. He was kind of like against a lot of the Nashville culture that was all about like, oh, I'm trying to make it in the music world. Anyway, they used to have an open mic there, and I used to go to it every week. And one week I was there, and this guy got up on stage, and he just started ranting about politics.
Yep.
And it got to where he, you know, he had a guitar over his shoulder, and he's just like, you know, ranting about this and that. And finally they were like, dude, if you're not going to play a song, get off the stage. And I don't think he ever did get around to playing a song. They finally just pulled the plug on him and got him off stage. But it gave me an idea for a song. And that's kind of what this Ain't No Friend of Mine is about.
Perfect.
So.
When I was a much younger man, I traveled all through these here lands. From up around the New England parts to down to the land called Mexico starts, and in between there I visited a lot of places. I shook a lot of hands, I saw a lot of faces. Got pretty close to some things you wouldn't want to go near. I heard some things I bet you wouldn't want to hear. But of all the towns that I could recollect now, there's one I remember being a little bit different somehow, 'cause there was this man, I don't guess you doubt it, he did this thing. Well, let me tell you about it. It was a midsummer's evening, if I remember right. I was hunting up a place where I might stay the night, and I came on this crossroads about 7:15. Only thing there is a hotel and a tavern. The door was open, there was a candle burning. I mean, it wasn't anything too fancy or nothing, but it looked like a place you might get a drink, have a spot to sit, and some time to think. So I go on in. I'm the only one there, except for the bartender, of course, and two other guys there, and they was gruff old boys. You should have seen them. So I go on up, sit down in between them. I say, busy night? No one laughs. The bartender comes over, wiping a glass. He says, I've never seen you in here before. I said, well, that's 'cause I've never been in here before. He says, well, where you from? I said, nowhere special. He says, passing through, all right, on schedule. Well, we talked that way for a little while. Neither one of the other two fellas even cracking a smile. finally the bartender tells me I look thirsty. I say thanks, I ain't had a drink since Thursday. He pours me this beer. I thank him for the service. He says, "You alright? You seem a little bit nervous." Well, I guess I must have been moving my eyes back and forth betwixt these two guys. So I said, "What's the story with these two here fellas?" He says, "Well, let me tell you, Mandy right there is a righteous man. Trust him about as far as I can. He doesn't say much, of course, that ain't worth saying, but a word from him is a word worth saving. Mandy your laugh's a whole other story, belongs to his very own category. I don't guess there's much that man ain't said against friend or enemy, living or dead." And right when he said that, this bottle comes flying. Bartender ducks, it breaks behind him. One of them threw it, I couldn't tell which, and then the other one called him an old dirty son of a you-know-what. So the bartender says, "You want to see something really funny?" I said, "That depends. What'll it cost me?" He says, "Nothing, just a minute of your time." I said, "All right, well, that ought to be just fine." He says, "Ask this fine, young, handsome gentleman," he's pointing to the guy standing right across from him. He says, "Ask him to tell you about that other fella, the one there sitting there on the other side of you." So I said, "Why? What for? What'll happen?" He says, "Nothing, probably," and he starts laughing. I said, "Well, I don't get it." He says, "I can see I'm boring you. Just don't try telling me that I didn't warn you." And then he walks off somewhere. So for a minute I paused. I just sat there thinking, nobody's talking. So I started thinking, what in the heck could be so hilarious about these two fellas here? Come on, it can't be serious. So I'm drinking. And I'm feeling a buzz. I asked the man to my right what his name was. He says, "I'm Jake." I said, "Jake, who's your brother?" He said, "For that, you're going to have to ask my mother." I said, "All right, and where's she?" He says he doesn't know. He points down the bar, says, "My brother might, though." I said, "All right, well, this is getting exhausting." So I go up to his brother, and I practically accost him. I say, "Howdy, friend, put her there. Now, what can you tell me about that man down there?" Well, he just grunts, turns his back. He's pouring these shots out, knocking them back. So I try again, always been persistent. He resists me again like he's all against it. Finally, the bartender calls out, "No, you can't force it. I know he drinks it faster than he can pour it, but, well, you just let him finish that there swaller, and you'll see, he'll begin to holler." Sure enough, no sooner does he set down his glass and he says, "All right, I'll tell you. But just 'cause you asked, he's a no-good, long-haired, dirty, yellow, double-crossing son of a low-down line, cheating, stealing, rank, smelling, onion peeling, lazy, inbred, foul-mouthed, grass-fed, ugly, useless, two-bit, unread, urine-drinking, whistle-blowing, story-telling, feces-throwing, draft-dodging, muck-raking, unamusing, ambulance-chasing, money-grubbing, mother-loving, counterfeiting, good-for-nothing, unmannered, lame, bland, inconsiderate, stupid, selfish, weak, illiterate, helpless, hopeless, heartless, desperate. Hang on a minute now, I ain't done yet. Me's a little sneaky, sniveling, treacherous, lecherous, daughter-diddling, cold-blooded, backstabbing, two-faced, disgrace, carpet-bagging. He's a unenlightened, foolish, misanthropic, uncreative, oafish, idiotic, brown-nosing, boot-licking, finger-pointing, ass-kissing, needy-greedy, angry, jealous, underhanded, sideways, overzealous, dishonest, careless, gross, disgusting, disgraceful, hateful, intimate, trusting, beer-bellied, knock-kneed, sorry excuse for a cross-eyed, hook-nosed, snaggle-tooth, pigeon-livered, humpback, chicken-hearted. Don't even go getting me started. He's a genuine trash-feeding, lower-than-bottom-dwelling, fun-spoiling, trouser-soiling, door-to-door insurance-selling, bootlegging, egg-laying, naysaying, no-paying, spit-spraying, belly-aching, wind-breaking, time-wasting, unreliable, ruthless, unrelenting, freeloading, freedom-hating, not to mention he's a card-carrying, proselytizing, sister-marrying, fascist, sympathizing, and he ain't no friend of mine. No, he ain't no friend of mine. He may be a one of a kind, but he ain't no friend of mine. He ain't no friend of mine. No, he ain't no friend my brother, but he ain't no friend of mine.
So there's that.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. So, that was a put down of the capital letters. I don't know. I never saw anything like that before, and I'm not sure how to respond to it. Thank you.
It's all
Now, the
right.
thing that people don't know is that you have all these songs memorized, and I have no idea how you do that. That's part of your art. Um, I've seen you do that song about 20 times now, and every one of those put downs is all memorized, and I could never do that.
Yeah. Well, it's that's the kind of song that once you play it out at a place that you play frequently, everybody just wants you to keep playing that
I
song.
know that's the
They're like,
song. It's
play
the
the one,
greatest,
play the one about the curse words.
and there's no
uh,
curse words in it. That's the best part.
well, daughter diddling is,
No, well, shh, but we don't talk about that. That we don't know. It could be you just like to play Ring Around the Rosie. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it's memorizing a lot of that stuff is all about most. There's rhymes in that song, and I think if the rhymes weren't there, it would be a lot harder to memorize.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
because it's like if you can remember one line,
It triggers
then
the
it's just
rest
kind
of
of
it.
filling in the rest. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
mnemonic devices.
Yep. Perfect.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's true with most of the songs I write are
Mm-hmm.
kind of like rhyme. They rhyme. I think there's a lot of songwriters out there who have I've heard them talk about how like they feel limited when they have to write a song and they have to make it rhyme.
Uh-huh.
But I actually think that's like that really helps
That helps. Sure it
helps you
does.
know where to go, helps you
Mm,
remember what you're
right.
remember
Right.
what you're doing.
There's a structure here. Exactly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, totally. So I find it kind of liberating to have rhymes to rely on when I'm constructing a song. Because
Uh-huh.
it's also like, if you can think of a line and in the music you know that the next line has to rhyme with the end sound. There's only four or five things usually you can do. So it sort of like narrows down the infinite possibilities. Uh,
Absolutely.
so I think I find that helpful as a as a songwriter.
Perfect. It's perfect. Sam, I'm constantly amazed at how you do this, and your songs are all elegic. I don't know how else to say it. You're wow. What do you do for inspiration? How do you start? How do you finish? How do you construct these mighty tomes of knowledge?
Well, yeah. So I think like for that last song, most of them really do start with like an idea, um, or a title, sort of like the repeating thing. I think like ain't even had my coffee yet. That line is like something that I've heard a lot of people say, and it's like a
Mm,
common saying. So I think trying to make songs out of like common sayings is something that I'm kind of interested in.
hmm.
Um, and so like like in that song, it's like just trying to think of the situation that arrives at that. Like ain't even had my coffee yet, and trying to figure out how to put music to that in a way that makes it kind of sound natural.
Hmm.
Um, and then in a song like uh, "Ain't No Friend of Mine," that's more of like a narrative. Uh, it's a very simple repeating guitar part, but it's a story. Like there's no repeating. There's
Hmm.
no chorus in that song. There's no um, lyric that it like returns to. It's just kind of like remember the steps of the story, and you can
Hmm.
you can kind of retell it every time you perform it. um but yeah, I think like I don't know, storytelling is something that I'm really interested in, and I think I sort of started out writing as like a short story person, and and I really like writing fiction. But I think like I've gotten better at doing that since I've started writing songs, because in fiction or when you're writing prose, you can start describing a room and then suddenly you have 5 pages of talking about what a room looks like.
Right.
But in songwriting, it's like you gotta like get to the point
Yeah.
as quickly as possible a lot of times. So
Uh-huh.
I think it's helped me like sharpen up like what am I trying to say? What's this about? I think songs are good for that kind of like sharpening up your language
Uh-huh.
and
Well,
condensing things.
you've got the best sense of humor. I gotta tell you, writing a joke into a song is a very dangerous thing because the joke becomes old quickly. And but your jokes are never old to me. You know, you've got a great touch with the quality of your wordplay is right there. Now, I hate to do this because it's always the kiss of death to compare anyone to Bob Dylan. But your songs sometimes, like Bob did a lot of the wordplay songs that were all his dream songs. He had one called Bob Dylan's 115th Dream. He was telling you, I do this all the time, but he
Yeah,
did it in colorful language. And but he does 3 4 chord patterns, and he tells you a bunch of rhyming words that are just imaginary horseplay. And how can you tell me anything about, beside Dylan, who else affected your approach toward music? Who could you name that you got?
yeah.
It springs to mind right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, Bob Dylan is obviously like I love his music. He's somebody who has really helped me. Like, kind of studying his songwriting has like I think really helped my songwriting. Um, but it's interesting, like bringing up that song, the 115th Dream. A lot of what he was doing was using um, like people who came before him and sort of like borrowing their
Absolutely.
structures and putting his own words to
It's an
things.
American
So like
tradition.
yeah, so that song, like that's a talking blues song basically.
Hmm.
And that is a form that was kind of developed by Woody Guthrie as far as I know.
Hmm.
And the talking blues is something that has been replicated by almost every folk singer out there.
Hmm.
Um, like Woody Guthrie wrote 3 or 4 songs that were quote unquote talking blues to the same structure, and then Bob
Hmm.
Dylan's like 115th Dream, talking World War III blues. He's got one about talking Bear Mountain
Yep.
Picnic.
Yep.
Um, and each one of those, it's just like a couplet. It's a repeating couplet that he's doing the whole
Yeah.
song, but he's telling a story, and then it sort of leaves this. There's a line that's unrhymed in that structure, where he's kind of like able to like tell a joke or say something funny or profound in a lot of cases. And I didn't include it in today's lineup, but I've got a couple talking blues songs. But I think like just listening to other songwriters who are borrowing that structure sort of helps you realize that like, oh, I could take this form and make it into something that I want to talk about.
Exactly.
Um, and yeah, so Bob Dylan is one. I also really like Woody Guthrie. Pete Seeger's got some talking blues. Um, Phil Oakes is somebody I really enjoy listening to. He's got a lot more like political songs, but I think he's been a real inspiration. And then yeah, just like the whole folk uh, era people, like
Yep.
Joan Baez and
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of names. I also really like Towns Van Zant, and I think that earlier song, "Ain't No Friend of Mine." I was listening to a lot of Guy Clark. He's got a song
Oh
called
yeah. Oh my God.
um,
He's unrecognized. He's kind of
yeah,
a, he's a he. People think of him as a pop singer, but he's really a great folk singer.
yeah, Guy Clark.
This a lot of what you're talking about here probably came over from Scotland or
Oh yeah,
Ireland somewhere. You know, this is this is uh, what I used to think of as being in a bar, like you know, so much of American music was invented in a bar by a bunch of drunks, you know, and
Yeah,
and and like even if it's black music, it was it was blues, you know, it was the rhyme scheme was you do two setups, you know, and then you set up a situation, you repeat the situation, and then the third verse is to resolve the situation, you know.
yeah,
Muddy Waters and all those guys were doing all that stuff. That's a standard blues format,
yeah,
and so but it's always been, it's always going to be, you know, it's just it, it gives you time to think about how you want to resolve the situation by saying the second verse as the first verse again, so you have enough time to conjure up uh, something else, so you can make up a song like this on the spot, and I've seen it done. I
yeah,
There was a guy at the Wildflower named George Johnson that used to sit there and sing a song about what you were wearing out in the audience. He'd sing a song to you, and then he'd sing a song to somebody else over there about how you looking funny, and your wife is tapping you on the shoulder to leave, and and stuff like that. He would describe actual scenarios in the bar,
yeah,
and and do it live. You know, you didn't make this stuff up ahead of time. This was him telling you stuff, and in a song, and you go, God, what a talent that is.
yeah. That's amazing. I
Yeah,
I definitely am not that clever or quick.
I think I've seen you do stuff like that. Come on,
Uh,
I've seen you challenged already. I know you can do it, man. Uh,
yeah.
what other songs you want to do for us? Tell us again. Another one.
Well, so there's another one I think we got on the list here called Words, Words, Words. And this is a recording of me playing at the 2018 NERFA conference, which is the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance. And I got to go to that with a friend of mine, Ian Zolator, who runs the folk show on WXPN
Oh, good.
out of Philadelphia. So
Wow. Big time friends. Good for you.
yeah, so he took me to NERFA, and I had never been, but he like nominated me as like every DJ at NERFA gets to like pick a performer, I guess, in their area. So
Hmm.
he nominated me, and I went and played that
Wow.
song.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's all I need to say about it. But it's also kind of talking about Phil Oakes. It's a song that is more political, and I wrote it when I was reading a book, Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, which it's a history book that just kind of tells the story of American history from the perspective of the people who are most oppressed and um, oppressed by the decisions of people in power.
Right.
So it's kind of telling the other side
The other
of
side, the stuff that
a
you
lot of
don't
the history
know
that's in
about.
our history book.
Right.
So yeah, we can play that one. 1492, Chris Columbus and his crew discovered folks a-living in some islands to the west. Promised to be kind, then went and changed their minds, made most of them their slaves and put the rest of them to death. If I didn't know any better, I'd suppose that the terms of his agreement just weren't heard. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the promise was just words? In 1838, Andrew Jackson did create a paper saying that the natives would receive their promised land, made a reservation zone, drove them into Oklahoma, leaving Cherokee and Choctaw blood in the Mississippi sand. If I didn't know any better, I'd suppose that the lion simply couldn't have endured. But
It's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the promise was just words, words, words? In 1864, trying to end a civil war, Mr. Lincoln signed a paper saying that all slaves should be freed. Soon as he let them go, in came the old Jim Crow, and the rest you know is history. If I didn't know any better, I'd suppose that the promise had only been deferred, deferred. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the promise was just words, words, words? In 1954, in a case called Brown v. Board, the Supreme Court ruled public schools must integrate their kids. Took their time, of course, with getting it enforced, and before anything could happen, it was just like nothing ever did. If I didn't know any better, I suppose that the ruling was too good to have occurred. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the promise was just words, words, words? In 1982, Ronald Reagan, tried and true, said he'd increase public safety, and on crime he waged a war. For Reagan, being safe had to do with class and race. Most of the folks he rounded up were young and black and poor. And if I didn't know any better, I suppose that the law was meant to keep us all secured, cured. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the promise was just words, words, words? In 1992, the war on crime and drugs just grew. Mr. Clinton said he had a plan and that it would be unfurled. Built prisons left and right, filled them practically overnight. And now the U.S. has more prisoners than any nation in the world. If I didn't know any better, I suppose that the lockdown was a bad dream that emerged. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the lockdown was just words, words, words? 2001, weapons of mass destruction were the excuse Mr. Bush used to reinvade Iraq. And though the nukes were never found, the country was torn down, and U.S. oil prices fell a little bit after that. If I didn't know any better, I suppose that the reason couldn't have been so absurd. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit that the reason was just words, words, words? Now the verses of this song could go on and on and on. The lies my leaders told me are too numerous to name. But I'm a-getting tired and my patience has expired, and as we move into the future, the song will stay the same. And if I didn't know any better, I'd suppose that one's government in all things should be just. But it's getting late, how long you gonna wait before you admit if it'll be just? It'll have to be up to us. Thank you.
Wow. I got to applaud that myself. That was marvelous. Whoa. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the abridged version of that song.
that was, yeah.
There's some other verses. The thing about playing at NERFA is that when you're up on stage there, that there's this big clock on that
Oh,
you're just
no.
looking at the whole time, and as soon as that clock is up, they will yank you off stage. So cutting verses. But
Oh, that sucks.
there's some other ones in there about Vietnam and
Uh-huh.
the Hiroshima, dropping
Yep.
the atomic bomb,
Right. That's a very
etc.
important. Sam, I know. Oh God, it'd be nice. It would be nice if you had the power to just say, "Hey, I'm going to do my song, my way." But you don't have that power. You don't have that power until you become a national recognized person, and
Yeah,
until then, you got to kiss where they want and when they want it. Unfortunately.
yeah,
Man,
yeah. But I mean, yeah, to go, I guess, thinking about other lessons I've learned from listening to Bob Dylan, I read somewhere that when he, or maybe you told me this, Bill, but when he was writing, what's the song? Like a Rolling Stone, he wrote like 30 verses or something.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I've heard that he does that with like a lot of his songs. And I've tried to do that. Like when I'm working on a song, I'll try to write way more verses than are necessary.
Right.
But as sometimes happens, sometimes you wind up liking them so much that you just want to
You
play all of them.
can't edit them out.
So then you
Exactly.
have a 9-minute song on your hands or
Right.
a
Which is
17-minute.
total, as far as they're concerned, it's unsellable, pal. You have to leave.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have something I have to share with people. You've always worn some kind of a baseball cap, and I've always seen you have some kind of a pen underneath your cap. And I know that inside the cap, you'd keep some paper and you'd write down all your all your words, and when you had an idea. So I'm spilling the beans on your words, Sam. There you go.
Yeah.
That's how you remember all of them, huh?
Well, yeah, I don't I feel like yeah, I was going through a period where I was doing that a lot, and now I've just got a little notebook I keep in my
Oh, you
pocket.
got a
So
different technique. Okay.
yeah, well, my hat blows off, and then
Oh,
all
no,
my papers go
no, you
everywhere.
lose 30 days worth of words. Damn it.
Yeah, so you gotta adjust to your environment,
Did
I
you ever
guess.
write a song at night, like wake up with a song?
I definitely get ideas for things that way, but very rarely, like I've heard stories that who was it? Was it Mick Jagger who like
Yeah,
had
Keith
an
Richards wrote
epiphany and just
Satisfaction that way.
wrote
Yeah,
Satisfaction and
they became millionaires from that one song,
yeah,
and
I've
now
heard a
they
lot
got to
of
do it. They've been singing Satisfaction every night for 50 years. Imagine doing that, huh?
yeah, yeah. So I don't have any illusions about how I mean every song that I've ever written has come from like sitting down and struggling and doing the puzzle of putting words together. I don't feel like things just come like divinely inspired or like completely formed, and it's just a matter of I'm just writing down what the muses are telling me. Um, but that's not to say that that's not how other people do it. I can't speak for anybody else, but I get like a line or something or an idea, and then it's really but for me, like I really do need to sit down and spend time by myself, and it really does feel like doing a puzzle a lot of
Uh-huh.
times, like putting a verse together or a chorus, because it's there's rhyme, there's meter, um, and I think yeah. So for me, also, I think like when I approach songwriting, I try to do it as if I've never written a song before, um, because I think once you write a bunch of songs, it can start to feel like, oh, I've already rhymed like rock and stock or
Right.
whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then it starts to feel like, oh, I can't do that because I've already done it in this other song. But I think if you can kind of approach it as like, oh, this is the first time I've ever done this. This is, it only needs to be this song that I'm focusing on. I think that's been a helpful way to like produce more more material than maybe I would feel comfortable doing otherwise.
I got a
So
tough question for you, Sam. A tough
yeah.
question. If you were being sent to like a prison colony and for the next 20 years and you only had three things you could take with you, like maybe like an album or a book or a play, what three pieces of works of art would you take to a prison colony to that you could for the next 20 years?
Oh gosh. That's a tough one.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd probably take uh some long books.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
pass the
okay,
time.
but no specific authors. I'm talking about specific works that you would like to go back to again and again. That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. So I think for me, I mean, I have like I really like writing um and I have a lot of favorite authors. I really like Herman Melville, um, William Faulkner, Dostoevsky. Um,
Dostoevsky. I tried reading him one time. Wow. I, I got
yeah,
about two chapters in and I said, that's it.
yeah,
I can't
he,
follow that guy at all. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I really like those longer novels. I really enjoy kind of like getting lost in them and experiencing the world of a long novel. Also
Okay.
really like David Foster Wallace wrote, Infinite Jest is like this enormous book, but I really like it. I think it's a
Uh-huh.
great book.
You have a
Um,
tremendous attention span. Jeez. Sam, I'm so proud of you.
well, yeah, it's
You're like from the wrong generation. You know that, don't you?
yeah. Well, so this is the thing. It's like, if I could, I would be a novelist or like a writer of great long books, but I think the thing I like about songs is that you can at least finish them in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah,
To
you're
write a
forced
novel, you
to.
gotta spend 10 years writing it.
The venue has to close down at 2 o'clock, you know? So you have to finish the song before 2 o'clock, okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
You have
I
to
think,
chase everybody out.
yeah, but I do see like there is a lot of overlap between, if I really like prose and I like reading novels and
Mhm.
stuff, and I think that has informed my songwriting quite a bit. And I also think there's a lot of like especially in folk music, there's some like overlap between stuff like that. Like Woody Guthrie has a song um, about Tom Joad, which is kind of like a synopsis of the Grapes of Wrath. And there's a story apparently when he wrote it, John Steinbeck heard the song and he was like, "Damn, this guy wrote this, just as good as my book was." And
That's
it's a
perfect.
folk song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I think there's stuff like that, and like I have one of my compilations of music is called failed novels, and I kind of think of some of my songs as like, well, couldn't couldn't didn't have the patience to write a whole book about this, so just turned it into a song.
That's right.
Um, so I
It
think
was
there's some of that.
it was a good idea when it started.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know. It'd be hard for me to pick just a couple people. I
Yeah,
mean,
okay. It was just a rhetorical question, you know
yeah,
that.
yeah. But I also think like having a Bible is good. There's a lot of really good stories in there too.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not a particularly religious person, but I do feel like uh,
See, I
re-
differ with you. I think you are a particularly religious person. You just don't know it yet.
yeah.
You don't
Well, that
know it.
that could very well be.
Yeah.
But I do, yeah. I have another collection of songs that's called "Only Human," and those are all mostly songs that were inspired by scripture passages or stories from the Bible.
My point.
And I do feel like that's a rich, especially also in folk music. There's a tradition of turning kind of stories from the Bible into songs. So I feel like I've also tried to kind of follow in those
You need to tell us
paths.
about your father and how
My
he
father.
influenced you. Tell us
Yeah, well,
about it.
my dad is also a songwriter. So I
Yeah.
think he is probably maybe part of the reason I'm got into music in the first place.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
raised me on the Beatles. Every month he would stand us in front of his Beatles calendar and he would quiz us on, all right, which one is this? So,
That's great.
yeah.
Okay.
So they were a real big part of my, upbringing. But
Uh-huh.
he's also the chaplain of Lehigh University. So he's got a PhD in religious studies and ethics,
Mm-hmm.
particularly.
Yep.
So he's kind of more in the philosophical side of religion.
Uh-huh.
My mom is also a minister. She's retired now, but she was a
See,
practicing
there
minister
you
most of her
go.
life. Yeah,
My point entirely. I rest my case, Your Honor.
yeah. So I'm the son of two
You use
ministers.
absolutely no foul words in any of your music. You know,
Yeah, but
it's a refreshing change
I'm not
from a
opposed
lot
to
of
it.
what's out there. You know that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
sure.
and that in itself is an art. You know, and there's a whole thing about you can talk about really nasty things like Chuck Berry did that. You know, uh, a lot of the artists that came out before the 80s. After the 70s and 80s, things got raunchier and raunchier, and they kept using the foulest, lowest level words in pop music and big selling records, and there didn't seem to be a bottom to it. There didn't seem to be any depth, uh, any way to stop it, you know. And but the stuff with the strongest poetry, you know, is was the stuff that they had to kind of cover and find a new way to say things that were oh, painfully covered by the word like fuck. You had to find a new way to say that word with as much eh, force and without using that word, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think, like, there are better ways to say, to insult people or
Yeah,
to say, like, screw you, basically.
right, exactly.
You
And
know.
so, listen, I think it's time for you to deliver another one of your tomes, um, which is like a
Yeah.
poem without really a long poem. So tell us what song is your next one?
Yeah, so I think this might be the last one we have. But I just mentioned a minute ago "Only Human," the song that is about, like, Bible inspired songs. So this is from that. This is called "Only Human." Death was out riding his horse in the desert when he happened upon two traveling men. One of them saw his face in the distance, took off running the way they had come. Death made his way within range of the other. He tipped his hat and said, "You know it's all right." He said, "Look, I'm only surprised to find you all the way out here when we've an appointment in town tonight." I used to know where it was I was going. My life had purpose, direction, and aim. But somewhere I lost my defense against knowing. In the end you wind up losing the game. And you can never escape it, outrun it, outsmart it. It's like a storm hanging over a sea. But can't I be devoured without being required to worship what's swallowing me? Maybe you're
you're a little more discerning. You already know what I'm still learning, and you've extinguished what I've been burning a long, long time to know. But given the option between staying and moving, saying and doing, begging and choosing, I'll take whichever brings me quickest to ruin. I'm only human, you know. So here we are on the eve of adventure, the brink of destruction, the moment of goodbye, and nothing is happening but a faucet is leaking and darkness is filling the sky. And you wanna know if tomorrow I'll still be here, right where you leave me, here in your door like this. And I wanna know if this isn't your clever way of telling me that my chance has been missed. So go to your brethren, return to your battlefield, take whatever strength you got left. Your cards are all showing you've been holding them clumsily close to the wound at your chest. And perhaps you'll think less of me, but perhaps that's reality. You ought not to go building up myths. Sometimes the tools you invent to escape yourself are the chains you imprison it with. Maybe I'm just too ill-tempered, sophomoric and self-centered, to recognize the race I've entered has been traveling much too slow. But given the option between flying and falling, crying and bawling, lying and sprawling, I'll take whichever proves itself as my calling. I'm only human, you know. Jesus Christ, he was sent here to save us with a message and a couple of tricks. Wherever he went, he encountered a creature that must have struck him as too broken to fix. He once asked to please be relieved of his mission. He said, nobody here understands. Everyone thinks I'm chosen and special. I keep telling them I'm only a man. He died on a Friday, lay dead on a Saturday, and early Sunday morning he rose. When they rolled away the stone from his coffin, all they found were the scraps of his clothes. Two fellas out walking on their way to Emmaus encountered him and said there were more to retrieve. He said, look fellas, even if you manage to get their attention, you'll have to die to make them believe. But maybe you'll be more successful when your angel pulls you in to wrestle, and you won't have to sink the vessel just to make still water flow. But given the option between staying and leaving, giving, receiving, nothing and grieving, I'll take whichever staunches the bleeding. I'm only human, you know. Maybe you're just a hair more saintly, or maybe you just don't hear so faintly. But we're all sort of rotten, ain't we? And we reap the seeds we sow. But given the option between standing and kneeling, buying and stealing, hurting and healing, I'll take whichever keeps me under the ceiling. I'm only human, you know.
Oh, I believe you're only human. I believe it. Thank you very much.
That's
That
right.
was wonderful, Sam. That was just gorgeous. Yeah. Speaking of human, if a human wanted to talk to you, Sam, how do they how do
Yeah,
they contact you?
yeah.
Where can we find your music?
So basically all the recorded music I have is up on my Bandcamp page. So you can go to www.samsteffen, that's SAMSTEFFEN .bandcamp.com. And that'll bring up, I think I've got about 100 songs up on there, to be honest.
Wow.
So you can listen to those for free, or you can buy them. I would always appreciate that.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
I also have a website. My website is just www.samsteffen. Again, that's SAMSTEFFEN.com. And on my website, it's a little out of date, but it also has links to music. I think it'll link it to my, yeah, that's how you spell my name.
I'm
That's a
working here. I'm working for you,
that's an old
Sammy.
poster. Um, but yeah, I also have something else that's worth mentioning. I think is my brother Will last year kind of he made a podcast that features a lot of my music in it,
Oh, good.
and that you can get to again on my website or on my Bandcamp page. And it's like an 8 episode thing that's sort of talking a little bit about my relationship with my brother. Talks a lot about like a bike trip that I went on about 10 years ago. And yeah, and it features a lot of recordings of my songs. So I think it's a really well produced
Okay.
representation of my music. So you can check that out.
That was Mighty Will
Um,
Steffen, huh?
Will Steffen,
How do
yep.
we, what was the address again? How
Well,
do I
again,
get it?
you can get to that on if you go to my website, which is
Okay.
just www.samsteffen.com.
Right.
There's a thing on there that says Will's podcast, and
Oh,
you can
okay. Excellent.
access the episodes that way.
Well,
Um,
I hope you can put up the Red Barn series too up your on your website. That
yeah,
would be nice.
I think
We
I
would
can.
like
I
it.
can
And
probably
I
get the
was
link.
go ahead.
Yeah, I could probably get the link and put that up. I also have a YouTube channel. So if you want to like check out the videos that you saw today, people can go to YouTube and type my name in, and I think they'll probably come up.
Okay. Well, we were given strict orders not to mention the name of Steve Jones, who's producing this, but I'm gonna like hell with strict orders. You know what I mean? But thank you, Steve. I want to acknowledge all the work you're doing, and I love you, Stephen.
I
Anyway,
thank you very much, Bill.
I'm wearing the biggest hat I own just for you, Steve.
I know, and I mean, I'm not gonna come in visually here because I don't want to scare anybody away.
Okay.
But but I just gotta tell you, Bill, that hat reminds me of the butter chiffon.
Imagine if Sam could put all his lyrics under this hat. Imagine what that would be like.
He could get at least 5 more songs, and he's got it
I
out.
think so.
That's right.
You know, I just came in. I'm doing something else, and I looked at the hat, and I heard dun da da da. It's the old chiffon commercial.
Well, we all in our life we all wear many hats. So there's one of them.
Well,
That's a
I was
treasure.
told, Bill, that you stopped wearing a golf hat.
I'm telling you what.
Yeah,
Where
because
was
someone
that?
smacked you in the back of the head with a 9-iron. I mean, that's
How's this?
there we go.
Okay. I'm working here. I'm working for you, kids. Okay. Listen, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Rock in the Valley. And I want to thank everybody that was associated with this, including the listener who actually took the time to sit through this. And I thank you. I thank you. And you're all a valuable part of the face of the earth. Remember that. Okay? Don't ever give up on that fact. And think that You're not, because you are. All right. I'm going to say goodbye. Sam, you want to deal us out of here with a hilarious song? No, you don't have any more, do you?
We got
I
one.
don't think I have any more, but
Damn it.
I
Okay.
will just say thank you for having
Well,
me on your show. This has
well,
been really great.
thank you, Sam. Thank you. And I do have this song that you're going to hear as our theme song was the song that I composed with a guy named the legendary Frank Zelazny on drums, and me playing a synthesizer trying to say "You are you." So if you can roll that for us now, mighty, mighty Mr. Jones, something is happening.
I don't know if I have that accessible.
Yeah, you do. That's the theme.
I
That's
gotta
the theme.
find it. All right, wait.
No. You don't have to roll it now. You,
Oh, you mean roll it? It'll be on the tape. Yeah.
yeah, it's on the tape. It's the goodbye.
Oh, that's a good. Okay.
Yeah, that's
We have one
the,
more song here
me
though.
going. You are you.
Wah wah. Yeah. And
That
this
one.
is great. I mean, I'm gonna leave all this in because I think it's funny.
No. No. Just
You
cut
put-
it
by
where
the
it's
way,
appropriate.
Sam, you do have one more song. You put them all to shame is in here. I can close.
Oh,
What we
Oh.
I have one
You
more.
want to do that, Sam? I love that song.
shoot, yeah, that's a song I wrote for Bill. So
Yeah.
yep.
Well, let's introduce that. Let's cut it and let me introduce it. Ready?
Go ahead.
So now I want to talk about one of the greatest moments of my life. The greatest moments of my life was when I was sitting at the Hookah Turka one night, and Sam came up on stage. I put the mic up in front of him and I dialed him in on the dial so that he could sound half decent. And then I walked down and sat in the chair, and he announced immediately, "This is a song I just wrote and I'm dedicating it to Bill MEdei." And then he started singing this song. And I sat there in tears, Sam. I can't tell you how much that was a present to me, because it ranks up there with uh, my wife and I trying for the birth of our two children. Uh, and in terms of my central nervous system just going into other forms of existence because of this song. So, do you have anything you want to say about it?
No, just that. Yeah, it's is playing with words again.
But it was a beautiful play. It was beautiful. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It was all there. Could you play it for me now?
Let's hit it.
You crossed the black cat's path when you encountered me. Somebody should have said this here was a carnival. The only way out again is back through the living room that you were just driven from on account of your destiny. You with your vacant heart, throwing your weight around just like you owned the joint, or like you knew someone, making your crass remarks into their fold-out smiles as all their watches chimed, and somewhere a sailor drowned. Tears like a jet stream sky raking your made-up face. I caught a glimpse of you inside the hallway mirror. You look like a vagabond, you look like a stolen wife. Ah, what's the word for it? You look simply out of place. And as the hostess rose shouting her lover's name, crying for ornaments and for a tablecloth, I saw how you fell apart, then gathered up yourself. You put them all to shame. Just then the matador flung off his captain's cape in preparation to perform some kind of ritual. The astronaut cleared his throat as if he would make a toast. Then he restrained himself. The whole roll of plumber's tape, I don't care what the Bible says, shouted the bathroom stall back at the minister, distributing sacraments out of a purse he stole out of the parsonage, pardoning pilferage at no extra charge at all. Back at the ranch, meanwhile, nobody'd moved a bone. The sheriff was flinging cards into a hangman's noose. The deputy watched her fly, buzzing around the room, drew back the velvet drapes, looked out at a parking cold. A fat lady stood and bell saluted the flag and sang, somewhere a child is born, somewhere a child dies. Nobody looks at you, they don't think you're beautiful, but you put them all to shame. You put them all to shame, just like a needle plunging into a vein that's full of the antidote to carry the cure from the heart to the brain. You put them all to shame. Lord Alfred makes his rounds, handing out red balloons, asking for tickets please, saying please watch your step, producing a handkerchief, dripping with turpentine, peddling silverware and stopping to smell the fumes. The emperor's crown's been caught over the mantelpiece. A bystander claimed it was made out of mistletoe. Lonely men gather round, waiting for girls to come. The pianist blows, trombone is requiem masterpiece. The sofa was filling up like it was a safety boat, with politicians' wives and the grandsons of janitors. There was a pack of dogs, I think it was Sherlock Holmes, charging the drawbridge doors, molesting an overcoat, and you in your pleated skirt, looking so torn apart. How did your hair get wet? It's not even raining out. I could have kissed you, then you would have hated me. You put them all to shame. You put them all to shame, just like a lost child nobody claims. His manifest radiance is offered to everyone and goes down the drain. You put them all to shame. Up at the podium, the weatherman prophesies all bets are off this year, blaming technology. The postman has been delayed due to the hurricane. Just then some legs walked in search of a centipede. The judge entered wig and all. Some people stood and cheered, others threw fruit at him, others forget-me-nots. His gavel was in his hand, his sword hanging by his side. His breath smelled of bubble gum, there was bacon grease in his beard. And people have asked before, what is it I see in you? I always respond to them, isn't it obvious? You held a parasol under a chandelier, you lit your cigarettes in the coals of a barbecue. It was your corkscrew gaze meeting the tailspin frame. That was the moment when I knew you were the one. They were the best of theirs, you and no match for them. You put them all to shame. You put them all to shame. You crossed a black cat's path when you encountered me. Somebody should have said this here was a carnival. The only way out again is back through the living room that you were just driven from on account of your destiny, on account of your destiny.
Oh, Sam. I've been given many presents in my life, but none of them made me cry like this. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you've always been someone who loves playing with words, and so you appear in that song as Lord Alfred,
Oh, thank you.
making his rounds, handing out red balloons.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure how I fit in. I was either that or the serpent wearing a vest. I wasn't sure. Uh,
Yeah.
but anyway, oh man, Sam, that was a beautiful present, and I'll be forever thankful. I'm going to say goodbye to Sam Steffen, ladies and gentlemen, and hope I can recover for the rest of the day.
All right.
And
Well,
thank you,
thanks.
Sam. Thank you,
Thanks for
and
having me, Bill. Really appreciate it.
thanks to Idaho for putting up with you, and I wish all the best to you and Jamil, and I hope you keep writing. Please
Will
don't
do.
stop. Don't stop, please, Sam. We need you, man. Okay. God bless everyone.